on to the Steelers. They're picking 20th in the first round. They are, by all indications, quite interested in the quarterback prospects. Kevin Colbert, I believe, I know, unless I missed somebody, he was the only GM at the NC State Pro Day on which I attended, by the way. If you have any questions, feel free to ask on Tuesday. And I'm pretty sure he's the only GM, but I could be wrong about that, at the UNC Pro Day on Monday, because the owners' meetings were going on in Palm Beach. So virtually all of the GMs were down there, even though Sam Howell was throwing. So maybe there could have been more. I could be wrong about that. But I do know that Kevin Colbert, it's like, look, I'm retiring. I'm not sitting around, I'm not sitting around the breakers answering a bunch of questions about, Mason Rudolph. No offense, Traps. I'm going up to North Carolina to check out some prospects, because I do think he's going to draft somebody. Traps, when you look at the Steelers, obviously quarterback is a need, even though they signed Mitchell Trubisky. What other team needs do you see for Pittsburgh, and what prospects are a good fit for them at number 20? Ryan Wilson doesn't think they'll trade up again. I don't think it's off the table at all if there's somebody they like, but the Devin Bush move sort of, kind of burnt them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see offensive line, although they did invest in that position in last year's draft. They've signed some players in free agency. I could see Zion Johnson, who I know Ryan Wilson has been kind of banging the table for. If he's there at 20, the offensive guard can really play any position, center, left tackle. He's got the long arms. He would be a nice fit in there. But I could see Kevin Colbert having kind of an Ozzie Newsome-esque departure and saying, I want to leave this franchise that I've been with for so long and been so successful with a quarterback. So that, to me, feels like if it's for a quarterback, I could see him saying, hey, we didn't have the best outcome with trading up for a linebacker in the 2019 draft, but let's do that now to get someone like Malik Willis. I thought it was cool and something that we don't see very often to hear Mike Tomlin say, we're going to pick a quarterback. I mean, he didn't say in the first round, but it feels like after round one, especially in this draft, if we're talking about the middle of round two, like what quarterback would be there that would be a distinct upgrade from Mitchell Trubisky or Mason Rudolph? It just kind of feels like if they do it, they should do it in round one. I would not hate Desmond Ridder by any means, especially if he doesn't have to start immediately. But offensive line, if they don't go quarterback, but don't be surprised if we start to hear more about them being very interested in moving up to draft Malik Willis.
Yeah, Northern Iowa offensive tackle Trevor Penning is a guy that jumps out for Pittsburgh. When you think about the Steelers and what they have been traditionally, that physical, tenacious type blocker, I think Penning would fit right in, in terms of that culture. But I think that a trade up is absolutely possible. And while they may have been burnt in the Devin Bush trade, that was trading up for a linebacker. I mean, when you think about it on the surface, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You traditionally don't value linebackers in the first round, and here they were trading up for one. So, it's not too surprising that came back to haunt them a little bit. Quarterback is entirely different. If you've got a strong conviction about a player and you feel that he's not going to be available at number 20 overall, then you absolutely make a move up the board and be aggressive to get that player. I mean, maybe number 10, which is where they moved up to get Devin Bush, is a landing spot for them again this year, in which case you've already got the framework of a potential trade laid out. And it's the Jets that hold that number 10 overall pick this year, which would be their second first-round pick. So it makes a lot of sense is that possibly being a destination for Pittsburgh to trade up and get that quarterback.
Before we get too far removed from the Ravens, toss up that comment from Vegas Refund in the chat, Debo. He asked about Jermaine Johnson. I bring it up because you had him mocked to the Ravens in your last mock draft. The under keeps getting steam, but mocks have him in the 12+ range. He's gone from 10.5 to 9.5. You have him going at 14, Josh, to the Ravens. Do we think that there's a chance if we get Hutch and Walker 1 and 2, and then Thibodeau goes to either the Jets or the Giants, is there a chance we see Jermaine Johnson go in that top 10 range, or is he someone who could fall? Or like, what do we think the likelihood of him going as a top 10, top 9 player? Because it keeps moving up. And generally, as we always note, these markets are very reactionary. They are not proactive. They don't have inside information. They react to mock drafts, news, rumors, etc. Like basically, like there's some dude working at the sports book with Daniel Jeremiah's tweets on alert, and like he's just moving guys around.
Right. And I think, the reaction right now is what you just alluded to. It's the fact that Aiden Hutchinson could probably go number 1 overall and Trayvon Walker could be the number 2 overall pick, in which case you have a run at the position. So teams are going to be more aggressive in trying to get up and get one of those remaining players, whether that is Jermaine Johnson, whether that is Kayvon Thibodeau. I know I think Traps is in line with this as well, but I think how the league views Johnson is a little bit higher than how he and I personally view him. It's not a significant gap, at least in my personal rankings, but there is a little bit of a gap there. But I do think when you're talking about the market and what could possibly play out, teams that need edge rushers are going to be motivated to possibly get up into the top 10 and get a guy like Johnson because, the options are quickly dwindling if Hutchinson and Walker go 1-2.
See, I think Johnson, I'm trying to look at the teams that could pick him. I can't imagine him going to the Falcons or the Seahawks at 8 or 9. I mean, I guess both those teams need an edge rusher, but it feels like there are greater needs for both of those organizations. I could see the Falcons much more prioritizing wide receiver. So to me, I feel like he'll go just outside the top 10, like to Minnesota at 12, maybe Houston at 13 if they don't pick Trayvon Walker or Kayvon Thibodeau at number 3 overall. Detroit later in the draft. It just feels like the top 10 is a little too rich for him.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that the top 10 is too rich for him from just an objective standpoint. Here's the scenario where it would play out. We all assume that the Texans and Jets and Giants want an offensive lineman or want, Icky or Evan Neal. Yeah. But the reality is that the Jets invested a high first round pick in Mekhi Becton and have, despite how poor, he got hurt and his health, maybe weight issues and sort of maybe like attitude concerns potentially, like he's still a potentially elite left tackle who's a young guy and they're not going to give up on him. The same Laramie Tunsil. A lot invested in Laramie Tunsil from a draft pick perspective and from a contract perspective. It's very possible that Houston and the Jets say, look, we love Evan Neal, we love Icky, but we don't want to draft a right tackle or a guard at 3 or at 4. And so maybe Houston does it anyway, like Neal could easily go play right tackle for them, as we point out, he played at Alabama. But if the Jets decided, they were like, maybe the Jets love Thibodeau, and they take Thibodeau at 4, I think one of the Giants' picks might very well be Jermaine Johnson. But I think at that point the Giants would go offensive lineman at 5 because Carolina might take the offensive lineman, although they're blatantly taking a quarterback, and then you grab Jermaine Johnson at 7 if that's where you wanted to take him. So I think that's maybe the scenario where it's just edge rushers are getting gobbled up and you want one really badly, and so you take one of the top guys.
And I think one thing that helps here too, and it's probably why that number has moved down, is the perceived slide for Kyle Hamilton, him running apparently in the 4.7s at the Notre Dame Pro Day. Now, of course, all it takes is one team. He could go number 2 overall to the Lions, but I think removing one of those players that we had almost written in pen to be a top 10 pick is maybe someone that goes outside the top 10 or later in the first round. I think he's almost being replaced, so to speak, by Jermaine Johnson in terms of the betting odds of where he will ultimately be picked.
Yeah, I'll say there's only one spot within the top 10 where we can say with any level of confidence that, an edge rusher is probably not going to go, and that's Carolina, because we feel that they're probably more drawn to an offensive lineman or a quarterback. So that's your reasoning for possibly getting Johnson into the top 10 as well. There's a scenario where Kayvon Thibodeau goes number 3 overall to the Texans. So then you're talking about edge rushers, top 3. You look at the Jets, the Giants, both of which could use an edge rusher. Again, movement is going to spur action. And I think if, those 3 guys go in the top 5 picks, then it becomes, and I'm not even convinced that Kayvon Thibodeau goes before Jermaine Johnson at this point. I think there's a possibility that he jumps over him. So I absolutely see a scenario in which he goes into the top 10. It's just me personally working through these mock draft scenarios. I don't value him as highly as what maybe some in the league do.
Interesting. Apparently Daniel Jeremiah, VR, good friend of the program, VR, notes that Daniel Jeremiah actually has moved Johnson ahead of Thibodeau. That might be the impetus for the steam in the market too, is that like if NFL teams, and let's not forget, if Daniel Jeremiah is moving him up and the Jets want an edge rusher, it's possible. And like, I don't think DJ's moving his stuff, or I don't think he's moving guys around because he hears that, like, Joe Douglas, who he's very good friends with, is likes Jermaine Johnson. But I would guess that if he's talking to Joe Douglas about prospects, which I would assume that he is going back and reviewing the tape, and maybe he's like, all right, I do think this guy's better than Thibodeau. And so maybe Jermaine Johnson is that surprise at 4 for the Jets. It does boil down to, we talked about this with Wilson earlier in the week, I think, or no, I talked about this with Nick Costas on You Better You Bet on Wednesday night. I've been spent way too many minutes staring at this stupid camera, and I'm like, can't remember where I said stuff. But we pointed out that and I know we're off track here, but it's fine. It's draft talk. Like, what the Jets do at 4 is so key for how the rest of the top 10 plays out, because if they really like Sauce Gardner and let's say they want to come away with a cornerback and an edge rusher, and it's just hypothetically, if they like Sauce Gardner a lot better than Derek Stingley, I think they're a lot more likely to take Gardner at 4 and hope that one of the edge rushers drops to them at 10, because you have the Giants who are only likely to take one. Panthers, I mean, Scott Fitterer's bluffing about it. He's like, oh, you might take an edge rusher. It's like, no, you're not taking an edge rusher. You're taking a lineman or a quarterback, buddy. Like, stop. And then, I think one of those edge rushers is more likely to fall to them at 10 than Sauce Gardner is. So it's either like an edge rusher and then Stingley, or, Sauce and then maybe one of the edge rushers. If that makes sense, is sort of why the edge rushers could get bumped up. Anyway, I don't know what I'm ranting about at this point. Let's move on to all right, so let me ask you this. Right now, you had to say yes or no. Do the Steelers draft a quarterback in the first round? Traps?
I think so, yes. I think they will.
Yes.
Traps? Okay. Do they trade up for it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if that moves the line at all. I don't think we have that kind of power. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Which quarterback? If you had to pick one right now?
I'll say Malik Willis.
Okay.
I would say Malik Willis as well, but I also have in the back of my mind that it could be Desmond Ridder.
No, they won't trade up for Ridder. They're right.
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely more support for him than maybe what it seems outwardly. I think, depending on
he's Pete's number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, depending on who you talk to, some people believe that the accuracy issues that we have seen can be fixed, that it's, a product of his footwork, in which case, if he's working with a private quarterback coach, and he has been since the season ended, there's no reason to believe that he's not going to show improvement. And I think that's the advantage where a lot of these teams have, is Desmond Ridder's probably taking top 30 visits to each of these teams that are interested in quarterbacks. And if they're seeing that his footwork has improved and you're not as concerned with the accuracy issues, then I think a lot of doors are open at that point.
All right. Desmond Ridder getting draft heat. Love to see it. Are there going to be more than 4 quarterbacks? Are there going to be 4 or more quarterbacks taken in the first round? No, right?
I think 4.
4? You think it's 4?
I think it's 4. What's the number set at right now?
Under 3.5 is minus 250 right now.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the logic being, if you look at it, Carolina, I feel like Carolina's just taking a quarterback. Like, there's no two ways about it. Unless Neil or Icky is there for them. And even then, I don't know if they can. I mean, the way Fitterer was talking yesterday. Maybe Saints. Steelers feel like they're definitely taking one, but who knows? I don't think the Falcons and Seahawks take one. So for me, it kind of boils down to do the Saints take one, and do the Lions take one at 32 is sort of where I'm at with that. But I mean, it could be 4. I think it maxes at 4, but I would guess under that personally.